Welcome to the Inspired Evolution. And it is such a treat to be here today because we have with us Jason Partington. Jason, how are you today?
Hey, I'm epic. Can't wait. I'm excited to be here.
It is such a treat to have you here. I love your haircut, by the way.
Yes, with the same barber.
I wonder if the haircut comes with, like, it's part of doing the work that we're doing. You must have this haircut.
It is.
Anyway, that's a story we'll stick by, right? For those tuning in to Jason for the first time, he's basically here to demystify meditation. He's making it more palatable for the average bloke. He's giving them the tools and the skills to live a happier life. His approach is loosely based around TM, transcendental meditation, but it's delivered in a skills-based format rather than a religious journey. Although, caveat, meditation basically will, on some form for many people, end up resulting in a spiritual journey. His mission is to make meditation mainstream, and that's why we're here. This is so good. He wants to help people break the bro code and find an inner connection. He wants to help provide them with tools to go internally, find their true self, and allow that true self to come forward naturally into their life. There's a lot to speak to in that, so I'm excited to have you here. He wants to help people understand ego and get more educated in body, mind, spirit, and the connection amongst all of those. He wants to help people live in the now, release their past, and stop worrying about the future. He's officially released a meditation course. He's now available for group settings and one-on-one settings. He's been meditating for over 22 years. That is definitely something. And he's studied many different types of meditation practices along the way. And his search for truth and exploring his own spirituality has taken him all over the world. And now he's here with us. So welcome, Jason. How are you?
Hi. Awesome. Good intro. Good intro.
You've been doing so much work on yourself for so long that it's really a blessing to have you here. So 22 years as a meditator, it's I feel very honored and very blessed to have you here. Just knowing myself personally, it's been a journey for maybe 8 years now. And so I can only imagine, just being on this path for 22 years, what sort of relationship you'd have with your practice and obviously with yourself as well. But tell us a bit more about where that all started. Like, what brought you to meditation? Okay,
I'll just precursor as well. We've got a little bit of a breaking connection, so if you see me looking a little bit vagued out, it might mean because of the connection. I'm in a library, so I'm trying to be quiet too. So starting point of the connection really started about 28 years ago, or when I was 28. I'd travelled significantly. I'd worked with resorts for many years and sort of travelled the world quite young. And I guess, I think a lot of people like me, I just didn't know who I was really, to be quite honest. I sort of came back from travelling overseas and found myself in this place of being a little bit lost. I sort of landed back in Australia and, had sort of formed a lot of bad habits. Was sort of surrounding myself with people who also had bad habits. I was like sort of ticking boxes, if that's a good way of putting it, I'd been socially conditioned to have all of these things, and I sort of got all those things, and then sort of was sitting there going, well, I'm really not happy at all. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the hell I'm here on this earth for. And I started having these major questions about myself and what I'm doing here. So, and I kind of hit, I guess you could say I hit a rock bottom, I really bottomed out. And I was very, very lucky. I was very fortunate. I had actually a mutual friend of ours that in Beata Alfoldi.
Yeah, she's been on an episode with her. Yeah.
An incredible mutual friend that we both have that's managed to steer me towards meditation at the time. She could see that I was in this place and said, listen, why don't you consider this? And I think probably because of my state at the time, I was ready to really throw myself in to really finding something out. And so I did a 6-week course with Gita Bellin. You might know of Gita Bellin. She operates out of UK with her husband Warren, I think. And so I did this course called Lifting the Veil, and that was the start. And I literally changed as a person in 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, I was going on one path, and all of a sudden decided I'm going on that path over there. And that started the journey. That started everything. It changed my entire life. And from then, I don't know, there's huge amounts of study and practice and international travel and, experiences which stem from that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So all these existential questions, how old were you when this was coming up to you? Like when you were having all these, like,
that was 28. That was 28. And I think I was speaking to someone who was quite intuitive at the time, and I don't know much about astrology and about those sort of numerology as well. I'm not I just don't know a lot about that area. But she said it was very, very popular for men around 28 or that age, or to have a Saturn return, as they call it.
Yeah.
And I, like I said, I'm not experienced in that line, so I don't. So I'm probably saying things which are ridiculous, but that's what she said to me. She said it was coming back into my Saturn return, and I was 28. But look, for me, I was late 20s and just completely lost. That was the beginning.
And so with meditation, obviously, you said everything changed in 6 weeks. What was, obviously you weren't aware, you had all these burning questions. I'm acutely aware of, just like reflecting on my own practice, you don't always get your questions answered, but you learn like a lot about yourself. So what was kind of the journey over that 6 weeks afterwards, where it was like, did you get your questions answered, or was it a matter of, no, there's just a new way to inquire and a new way to walk life?
I'm not sure that the questions were being answered as much as the barriers were being brought down through the connection to the meditation and allowing the silence to be, and just being in and finding really finding that ability to find silence within myself and allowing that sort of true nature to come forward. Actually was really new for me to feel this, or to actually even have a conversation as such with my true self. That's what I found. What's amazing is that I was actually having this inner dialogue going on, which has started, whereas before it was literally, I guess you could say that my ego was just taking complete control of the driver's seat. And I thought that's who I was. I thought that my ego was who I was. I didn't have any sense of identity. So that was the identity. And through that meditation practice, I allowed this dialogue to begin with my true self and this ego self. And I think that was, the questions started to get answered through a stronger connection through that dialogue. And that's always very, very much worked for me. I'm not sure it works for everyone, but it certainly worked for me, is the separating the ego from the actual true identity. And the more I meditate, the more naturally that true identity just naturally permeates and becomes the person in the control seat, which I think is amazing, because you don't actually need to do anything. It actually just happens naturally. It's beautiful. It's such a natural, beautiful thing to happen.
Yeah, there's this perspective for sure that I relate to, and what you're saying is that I often look at everything, especially meditation has definitely afforded me this perspective, which is it's a game of cultivation. It's like, as long as you just sort of show up to meditate, that perspective of observation, you cultivate more observation in your life. You're more aware. You're just continuously cultivating that. So it's just about showing up for that, 20 minutes twice a day, and then you end up with more of a cultivated way of being in that particular frame or way of being. There's something really fascinating that you shared is about the ego and the true self, which I absolutely love, and I'm really grateful for you sharing that. I guess what I wanted to speak to that was basically I've got I've got like life coaching clients, and also like mindfulness clients as well, mindfulness and meditation clients. But most often when people come to me and they're uncertain about which way they want to go, I'm like, look, let's do the meditation and the mindfulness coaching. That invariably ends up becoming life coaching, but on a much deeper level, because you're basically looking at yourself. You've got the tools to look in on yourself, and your life changes anyway. And I think the reason that works so well, in my humble opinion, is life coaching dressed up as mindfulness and meditation coaching, is because people find themselves rather than like asking questions about, what are your blockages, which is very useful. But at the same time, people learn to ask and build the tools within themselves. and beyond that frame of the ego, which is what you are referring to in the true self.
Yeah. That's a very interesting thing. I was asked a question about mindfulness and meditation the other day, and it's they really do work together. And I really find sometimes, with mindfulness, and I know we've had this conversation, like a couple of weeks ago when we were in Sydney together, is sometimes if you just say to someone to be mindful, then it's somewhat you have to work that muscle continuously to be conscious about being more mindful. Whereas when you meditate, you're doing your meditation twice a day, mindfulness comes as a natural course and path of you doing your meditation. And because you're enacting that true self to come through naturally, progressively all the way through the day, you actually find that you naturally become more mindful anyway. So you're not having to activate the muscle continuously. You're not having to actually consciously think, I want to be mindful in this situation. Whereas if you're just being mindful in itself, then you need to activate the muscle all the time.
I see what you're saying. That's a really profound insight. And so would you, like, my humble perspective, and I know you've got a lot more experience in this than I do. So my question goes, is there, because I see it as basically mindfulness is me being aware of my outer world, and meditation is the awareness of my inner world. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think mindfulness can be encapsulated not only just of the outside world, but also of the inside world as well. I think it's everything. I think it's, I think outside world, other people's perspectives, what's going on with me internally, being conscious of my thoughts and how I'm thinking about things, and being conscious of my thoughts and my feelings and my reactions. I mean, mindfulness is such a big, it's one word which encapsulates it all. But I think the meditation is definitely an inward journey, which permeates outwards naturally.
Amazing. And so, how is it like? So now that you've been working with yourself for 22 years, and you've been on this journey of meditation and mindfulness, and obviously it must have given you so much, because now this has become such a potent offering that I know for myself it's been much the same. But like, how come you're sharing it with the world?
Look, I'm going to be like brutally honest. Is that I wish that I could say that I'd meditate 2 times a day for 22 years, but I haven't. I've come in and out of it, and I guess that's how I have such clarity about when I'm actually meditating, that I'm a completely different person. And when you fall off the rails sometimes, and you realize that you're doing all these other activities and making these decisions, you're this kind of person, that in comparison, the way that you act and the way that you feel is so polar different. So, I've gone through this journey a lot as we all do as humans. Like, I think we're not perfect, and we go through this journey in it. But I'd like to say probably towards the latter part of my life, I'm starting to embrace it more and more and more and more, because I see the benefits. And actually, there was something I'd always wanted to deliver, a meditation style teaching that was not so religious based, maybe, and something that I felt could be more mainstream. The first reason behind that was because I wanted to pass that on to my children. I wanted to leave a legacy, and to make sure that they had that learning, should I pass on at any point in time, that I wanted to make sure that I encapsulated all of that and pass that on to my children, and their children, because I think it's only just starting to begin in schools. It's only, this process is that my little daughter is getting mindfulness training now, which is terrific. But then there was an event which happened not so long ago. So in the Northern Beaches, there was a seminar held, and it was about men's suicide. And I sat in the crowd of 300 men, who there was no women invited. It was just men. And the reason for that was because men open up in a men-only forum a lot better. And I sat there, and I was pretty shocked, to be quite honest. I was really I was upset to see so many men that were obviously not happy in life, men that were depressed. A third of the audience stood standing at one point and said that they'd had suicidal thoughts. And I walked away broken from that. I was really upset by that entire experience, to see so many of my brothers and men that I'd surfed with that are just completely not okay. And so here I had been sitting in this beautiful meditation skill in my own, cultivating my own self and understanding my own and I felt that this was the thing that really had to drive me towards giving this gift to other men. But the barrier is that I knew that a lot of these blokes would never ever come to meditation because of the stereotype that they didn't want the candles and the incense and all that sort of stuff, which is sometimes associated with all the religious connotations of it. So I sat there and thought about it, and well, it doesn't need to be dressed up like that. It just hasn't been dressed. It just hasn't been delivered in a format which is maybe a little bit more non-religious. So, and that was for me the real turning point where I said to myself, I have to do this. I've got to bring this to the marketplace. So I sold out of my business. I sold out of my property business immediately, and I've just been throwing myself into this because it's so important. It's become my everything.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I absolutely resonate with what you're saying. A couple of things I want to speak to you in that, because I do, and this is why we were talking about this a few weeks ago, and why we're so inspired to have this connection and this chat here today. I'm running around construction sites, guided meditations, and doing mindfulness in like construction company offices and also IT offices. It's completely stripped of religion, but it's extremely, extremely, extremely useful. And the benefits are, one of the challenges that I'm not sure if you face this, but I personally face is when I was first starting out about 12 months ago, was people were like, how do I quantify the benefits? And I'm like, I can list a whole bunch of things, but it sounds like it addresses so many different things that surely it can't be real, and so my blessing was that basically I went to companies that had CEOs that were already meditating, and I started working with them in their companies. And then on the back of that, I just started getting referrals, and now people can speak to the people, my clients that I've already worked with. And that's kind of been the easiest way to manage getting clientele. But for me, the one thing that I'm kind of aware of, like I'm super passionate about work, and I love that meditation is here. But the one conversation I wanted to have with you right at this moment, at this juncture, was, it's obviously a reflection on the state of the world as well. One of my favorite authors is Stephen Kotler, and he talks about living with what is called 21st century normal, how like just society and the way we're geared and wired at the moment is just so prone to anxiety, so prone to like depression. Like 1 in 2 is anxious or depressed. That's quite a stat. That's a huge statistic. And similar to you, like I'm driven by the fact that in construction in Australia, just in this country, in this one industry, we lose one person every 2 days to suicide. It's heavy. It's not light stuff. And I know when you mention meditation, exactly what you said. It sounds like like candles and incense and all this sort of stuff. But it doesn't at all have to be like that. It's just presence, breath, and like you said, connection to the self and what's real and what's not. And your thoughts, and just allowing them to be just what they are, which are just passing phenomenon. And I just want to have a chat about the state of the world. Like, what do you think? Like on one hand, it's such a blessing that we have meditation as a tool, but on the other hand, the state of the world in terms of that's calling people like yourself and myself, which had, I'm an engineer, you're a property developer, but we're leaving these careers to become meditation and mindfulness coaches and guides and teachers and sort of stuff.
Well, it's a big question, isn't it, about the state of the world? In some respects, I'm the eternal optimist. I always believe in the power of that. We're changing, that we are bit by bit, we are changing people's minds and hearts, as we go. there's certainly some still big worrying things for me about the world and how we operate. I guess I'm increasingly concerned about our politicians and who we put into power, and I guess this is going to be a slow burn for us because ever since I guess the dawn of time, religion and power and money have been the three evils which continue to be a part of the agendas of a lot of our, I guess you'd call them world leaders, Don't get me started on Trump. That's a completely different conversation. Yeah. But look, at the same time, there is a groundswell of change happening. I see it in my own sons and my daughter in what's happening at school level. I like that. I like seeing what's happening there. I'm not sure whether that's like just my little world that I'm seeing, whether it is the same in the country or it is the same replicated in other states. I can only give you a point of reference from what I see. But my sons are very active. They're very environmentally present, which is a lot more present than what I was when I was their age. They meditate. They actively look, to do the right thing, as opposed to when I compare myself to them. So I think that there is a groundswell of change, and I'd like to think that we are changing, but there's still a hell of a lot of work to be done. But I think there's a secondary group or a foundation that I'm rolling with outside of the meditation for men thing, and that is to make meditation mainstream. And that foundation or that group or whatever it is, I'd really like that to gain some traction and to try to do what you're doing equally, because we're doing very similar things. As we're bringing meditation without all of the candles and the incense and the stereotype of some guru coming in and telling you something that it's come from some religion. It's the more work that we do in this space of not despiritual. I don't want to say despiritualizing, because it is spiritual. It is internal, and it is a spiritual journey. But I do want to get away from the religious aspect, which so many people are. It stops them from moving forward. So I think the more work that we can do in order to create that opportunity for people to engage, that's really where I'm at, is to try to get people to engage with this, and to embrace it from a common sense, skills, and a tools based opportunity. Is from a religious aspect.
Yeah, I really value what you're saying.
So I'm not sure that I'm not sure that's answered your will.
Absolutely. It's about removing the friction from helping people live, what is possible. And I think the real beauty for me is, these practices are ancient. They have been embedded and hidden within religion for quite some time. But also, my humble perspective on some of that is that, Hinduism was never really a religion, and it's one of the bedrocks of meditation. It was just, the people that lived in India along the Indus Valley were just labeled the Hindus, and this was their science. Yes. It was their science, was meditation. And the thing that fascinates me now is it's our work is very well lubricated in society by the scientific research that's going on right now. There's so much science speaking to the benefits of mindfulness and meditation. Even papers coming out of gratitude and forgiveness now. People are doing like hardcore psychological science on all this soft, gooey stuff, which is very difficult to pin down. But the benefits are all there. They're documented, they're well referenced, like very well scientifically studied. And we can refer to that to, actually roll this work out into those like environments which are a bit more clinical, a bit more edgy, a bit more less prone to like what you've shared is, what we call the candles and the incense and the religious based stuff. Yeah, I guess the thing that's coming up for me, which is a question that I have for myself quite a bit, which I'd like to sort of just explore with you, is the idea of, you know, on the back of that, is how, you know, obviously you're saying, you know, you can see a change in your children, which is so exciting, you know, that you can see that there's like an impact being made. And so I often look at it as in, and like even myself as being like a very linear thinker, you know, was like an engineer, coming to meditation and becoming a mindfulness coach, and just sort of looking at that and seeing, okay, I kind of consider myself as being the dead weight. I'm sort of similar to you, the eternal optimist. So I sort of see myself as being the dead weight, and then going, right, like if I'm meditating, then surely it's a thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
it does.
but yeah, I wonder if there's you know, like what is it that inspires you to keep going along this journey and sharing, you know, continually.
Hmm. You know, I've like this year, like that. This year, there's something that's really changed in me this year, and I wanted this year to be a very, very big, a huge change in my being as a
Mm.
whole. Um, I stopped drinking alcohol for all the year. I went into the intention of this year knowing that I wanted to stop escaping anything, and I wanted to see what I was like without all of the escape tactics. And so I went in with a great intention, knowing that I'm going to meditate twice a day. I'm going to be really consistent at this. I really want to embrace it, and I want to see with consistency how much this cultivates. And this year has been the biggest year for me personally, from a personal perspective, from a wealth perspective, from just a complete the way that I act and feel internally has it's dramatic. You know, and I got a really, really good story for you, because and I've just actually posted about this, that it's kind of because, and this is why it's fresh. You know, it's a fresh story. I just finished writing it, but you know how when you meditate, you get these feelings of want to give. You want to give to someone other than yourself. You just want to give, and you can't help but have this compassion come through. And I've always been someone, you know, like with homeless, you see homeless on the street, and I've always been that person who gives money. You know, always been the giver. I give
Yeah.
some money and I walk by, but that's about it. You know, I never really look, never engage, never. I just throw some money in and keep walking. And I found myself I found myself in the middle of the year sitting, trying to find someone that's homeless. Like in my lunchtimes, I would be sitting there trying to find someone that was homeless in the mall. Anyway, I found a little lady, and I couldn't stop looking at her. I found myself compelled, and I was just looking at her and watching her. And this is in the middle of winter, and I was compelled to go up to her. I don't know why. This is not me. This is not the kind of person I was out of doing meditation regularly, but I felt this. I was just compelled to go speak with her. So anyway, I sat down with her. I ended up sitting down with her. I said, "Are you okay? Is everything you can tell? You know, how did you get here?" I gave her some money. She said she was cold. I ended up giving her my $500 wood coat. I just gave it without even thinking. I gave it my coat, and I started looking for this lady every day. And then I start meeting her friends. And the funny thing was, Amrit, I actually realized that for 46 years I've been walking past these people, and yet when I started meditating, all of a sudden this compassion comes from nowhere, and it fills your heart, and it's it still gets me emotional,
Yeah.
because because it's something different that flows.
Mm.
And it was a beautiful experience, you know. And I got to know this lady, and I would look for her every day, and yeah, it was a very it's a special change that I feel is within meditation. I think that's why I want to share it so much. That's what keeps me, is I know that if I can feel it, like you said, like you feel like it is dead weight. I love that. If I can have this sensation, if I can feel like this, is it imagine if you just pass this on? It's and I see people walking through the streets blind and with their blinkers on. I see it, and I can see how they can change that, and I can be at that. I can be at the core of that change. So, yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is such an inspirational, such a beautiful story. Yeah, that really speaks to the person that you become, and it is sometimes hard to pin down, but it is really like it does. It changes your whole being in such a magnificent way. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now. Like, so if there was let's say someone's coming to meditation but doesn't really want someone to speak to about it, is there a book that you'd recommend, or is there a book that's helped you along your journey in life? Doesn't necessarily have to be on meditation. Do you have a book that you'd like to recommend?
Well, I guess that first book that I've given to so many, which was given to me, which was that, like, when I just felt like I didn't know have any form of reference, zero form of reference, was The Journey of the Sacred Warrior. And I know it's an interesting story, and but I've read that book like 20, 30 times, and it still resonates. It's still a great book for people who are questioning about why I'm here, what am I doing. I love that book as a starting point for people, just to start that thought process.
Sure. Who's it written by? Do you remember? Journey of the Sacred Warrior. That's right. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. I will send it to you. Yeah.
In the show notes. That's cool.
I'm so bad with details and things like that.
That's cool.
I struggle to tell you my own birthday.
My next question is, who to you is inspiring?
Who to me is inspiring? I love Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
I got to say, that guy is. I'd hug him. I think that I would hug him if I saw him.
But he will tell you that he's not here. This is all just some grand. He's like, yes.
I really like, and these are guys in the public eye, I guess. But Russell Brand, I think, is an amazing guy that's come from. I think about his backstory and where he's come from, and I kind of think that I've got crossovers of that, and I can understand, a lot of those sort of addictions and stuff like that, which he went through early, and the progression out of that into something of realizing that, and then elevating to something completely different again. So I think I've been watching lots of his sort of stuff, and I love his journey. And Jim Carrey, I love him as well, because he's done the same journey, and he's been there and had it, and then let it all go. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. So I
love the great.
And
I love the great. Yeah. He rattles on like now, and he's
really good.
He makes a point to try and peel like people's identity, realities, and fold them back on themselves, and just be like, "What do you feel?"
Really good, really good. And I think there's the the stock standard, maybe people that people look up to, like Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer and all. I mean, they're all got incredible, all these people have got like 30, 40, 50 years worth of experience in this space, and they've all got their big value point. Deepak works on a scientific, metaphysical side. Wayne Dyer is probably a little bit more common sense, heartfelt types things. So they all, and Eckhart Tolle is amazing about about mindfulness, although he calls it mindlessness. And he has his, but I would much rather preface a Jim Carrey or a Russell Brand, where you can feel and see the journey that these guys have come on, and how they've actually managed to come to their current day and be in the space that they're in. I think they're incredibly brave, and
I think that relatability is really important as well.
Yeah.
And I think that probably is a preface to a lot of the work you and I both do as well, being relatable, having been in certain fields and spaces and then coming to share this work. Really, there's a lot of value in that. Just I've come to learn. So lastly, and by no means my least question, beyond the name, beyond the work, beyond the skin suit, this is a metaphysical question. Who is Jason?
Oh, who is me? I am probably who you are. I am the tree. I'm a connected being that's has the same thing running through you as the same thing running through me, and I'm part of the Force. Call it a Star Wars anecdote. I'm just a, as they say, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and enjoying the ride and being as present as I can in that. I use Star Wars a lot.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your being in this body here and now, and having this experience today. And I want to thank you, obviously, for your time here today to sit down and share your insights and passions behind the work that you're doing with Meditation for Men. But also, I know that this, we've been talking a little bit about cultivation today as well, and it's not just about today. So, all the work that goes into, being the meditator on and off, and for 22 years, and coming to the point where you're creating something to really create the impact that, we both want to see in the world. Thank you for all the work and walking that path. And, of course, blessings with, what's coming ahead. And I can feel, there's a lot between you and I that's coming ahead between us as well. So I'm really excited.
Well, thank you too, brother. You're doing I got to say, you're doing such an incredible things. And I am totally inspired by your story about working with construction workers and in that space. Honestly, I have a lot of praise for you, and really, I think that's amazing what you're doing, the work that you're doing with Inspired Evolution. And it's such a pleasure to connect with your audience. And I hope this is of value.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Awesome, for that. Thank you.
Want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with Jason Partington? On the website, the meditation.men.com.au is probably the easiest. Or I'm on all the things, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those sort of things. I'm a superstar, Amrit, so Twitter. So it may take a while to get back to you, but we'll get back to you.
I think I've got 3 followers on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, brother. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Love of the Inspired Evolution and sharing the Love of the Inspired Evolution. If you feel like this content has supported you or may support anyone else that may resonate with the content of it, please share away and share the love around. Thank you guys so much. And to stay up to date on whatever's coming out with the Inspired Evolution, please subscribe. There's all these links in the bio for you to tune into the episodes and all these different platforms, just so that message can get to you and your loved ones. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Stay inspired to evolve.